Women who can't keep their shoes tied nor hair brushed, passenger seat coffee cups, an unbalanced book, etc., on whose desk pages are out to dry or out to visit often, whose conversation ends abruptly, who don't message back, whose glass has a translucent ring, the memory of an older beverage, whose sadness rears in winter or summer like a movie twist, whose mood governs the room or slinks out Irishly, lipstick-toothed, ass smooth or unsmooth, politely lascivious. Late at night the clock is a messy symbol. By last call, time messy as her hair. Hours dip out suddenly like diving seals. The beauty anomaly keeps me up at night, in new basketball shoes, eating crow again, this time nearly old, and only one step away from brand new, aka abjectly mailing a novelty t-shirt to a messy woman. For a year I slept with a woman and never touched her, consumed together full DVDs and full bottles, fucked her neighbors and recovered in her clean sheets. The kitten we named after the impending hurricane we saved him from. He lived illicit in my building before I realized all the cascading impossibilities, such as my cat allergy and my roommate's displeasure at the arrangement. We had one man in common always, rude heartbreaker, who dressed his sadness in sheep's clothing, belied the impossibilities, and disguised his fear as rage. Our true love is too precious for him anyhow. A salacious club scene reminds me of her and us and what we were not up to all those nights before I took the ferry to Staten Island with a new woman to eat across the table from, years before I read the critical text that would crack the precarious egg in me, and more years even before I abandoned some comforts for uncertain aspirations towards freedom. There are words I have been waiting to use like a new jacket in the closet in summer or a flavor of seltzer on the shelf. The nascent truth of me resides in this arsenal. Meanwhile, in the real world, the fascists revive their vision. Neoliberal cruelties are unmasked with fresh lucidity. Language bubbles up to describe the world we inherited and contribute to. My ancestors' purposeful errors emergent in a male pattern, bald scalp exposed to sunlight, and sunlight scorches pale skin. It is all right there in the news. People still hate or love Chelsea Manning, opinions mostly divorced from the horrific nature of the war crimes she revealed. The impulse to buy a gun is the same as the impulse towards literature some days. It is the same yearning for superhuman strength, the same fear. The example of a person who is devoted to art more than friendship even is a small fascism I admire in spite of myself. One summer morning, I pulled not one but 2 rotting cottons from inside of me, already tired and bleeding brown, from day 4 of some cycle, forgotten or shoved further up in thoughtless sex. This negligence overwhelming, nearly old but apparently brand new, stinking for months from a mess in me. It is a wonder that only stench and not sickness warned me of the fetid garbage in a body so weak and usually subject to disease. Wrapped brown, in brown paper, then sealed in plastic. The mirror revealed me, the messiest person. Hate when my blood rots, when there is no flow. When I need a little air, we get a cross breeze going. Sometimes my car frame, skull, or boudoir becomes a little cradle of silence. The old tampons are the perfect metaphor for all that old blood, old cotton stauncher, no brilliant red for months on end, and a stink that was apparently too subtle. So birds signify dead people. At least that was my experience on every occasion, of dead people, not birds, as the latter fly sometimes unburdened, or more likely with burdens unknown to me. A person dies and their soul downloads to a bird's back. The bird lingers on a cord, the ground, a bucket, or a bush. The bird assumes some recognizable quality. The visitation is received or ignored. The bird comes back or goes away forever. Or the bird is a solar eclipse. The bird is the cell phone backup that brings a dead man's text message back up the river. The bird is the interstate U-Haul route, tracing south to a night of no sleep. The bird is the sudden fever my sister needs rescuing from. Death is not always complete, and tells her to lie down right now on the floor right now. Sleep is the wingnut holding a human parcel in place like a crash cymbal. Miniature death is so not real. Extrapolating that regular death is probably a bunch of bird shit too, except it is extraordinarily painful to deal with from the world of bodies. In a house by the water, it was nearly impossible to adhere to the myth of the unbearable chaos of life. Facts of anxiety recede into the mundane like items in a dish on the sill by the door. Loose chain, clothespin, guitar pick, pennies, and rubber bands blurred into a single detail. With hundreds of miles between my body and home, my parents' illnesses, my animals, and obligations are objects in a museum for once, seen from the safe distance of memory/mind's eye. The fog of this northern place unwinds around me and around it all like a blanket around a blanket stealer at night, enveloping. Yes, the familiar fog cushion, you may know of it from poetry. Affinity for mess, for affinity mess, for fibers of unconventionality, professors of love, letter writers, letters, poorly timed, or lethally timed as in Shakespeare, and other timeless tools of drama. Last night I bit my teeth together and dreamed of my love's love asking me to come out again onto the roof to see her work of art, an unfinished felted surface billowing wool in lieu of slate or rolled rubber. The birds freaked out like there was a storm or eclipse coming, like the eclipse this summer when the birds freaked out and my dead grandpa visited via a mangy white pigeon. Interlocutors know that frustrated communication drives me to my desk, text marked red, writing to a person who hates mail, or a person who hates mail and will never lift a pen for me, who will never take a photograph of me or point language in my direction, unlatches but does not open their door, to me. Reticence signals me to go full hog, to write fake letters for eternity, a book of them, full of every observation unremarked except to non-humans. Displaced emotion ebbs out of me and impacts only ferns or dirt, a footpath and no photographs for this memory. Details I am too much a hoarder to throw away and too injured to share. My eyes are gray when the sky is gray, etc/other times they are nothing because nobody is looking. Tree, sound, forest, yes/no, etc., which is fine and actually great. Write to me. Write to me. If you do not write to me, I will address this skin to you, its tattoos, my experience held in a basin, quarry-like, still and solitary, abandoned by laborers like the granite mine nearby, but still visited by some quiet people and teenagers after dark, plus the birds and small animals whose shit peppers the lichen-papered landscape. Consummated communication is the most nutrient-dense, keeps me sitting through the fog. The envelope confirms receipt on many levels. Received like a very important person, my text on the shore of her mailbox, taken in with understated warmth, like how a small country's queen might be greeted. Count on me for the ultimate trouble. Textbook hysteria will inflame your car, your bed, your place of work or worship, the stoop, audible from my bathtub or from the mountaintops, per cliches about loudness of heart. A radio anchor interviewed a scientist who remarked on the sun's eventual explosion in X number years. From the backseat of my mother's car, the number was a meaningless quantity. In my childish conception, somewhere between 10 and 1,000,000 years left to survive, aka potentially imminent death. That is when I first pledged to never bring a child into this fearsome situation on Earth. My mother, my father, my sister, and I have waited for me to change my mind. Only recently did I dream my hair was plastered to my face in exertion, that I would grow sick and strong and enormous towards the unnameable family that will be mine, child or no. In my vision, I offered the fruit to men with some money to care for her. The thought ended there, 1,000 miles from my peach or plum. She would be wrapped in my arms, and also across the world, my stranger's child. I would board an airplane loving her, miss her from my desk, my envelopes addressed to her, each practice and devotion addressed to her. She would be carved from and pressed in me. Her scent would be the magician of me. I did have one. I spent the winter losing my friend, my father, to fire, and recovering the capacity to be alone. The first remarkable day was the placid one, unripped and pristine like the surface of a windless bay. My child is the old mess which is tidied now. Room, unrequited correspondence, cluttered woman I loved in a time of insurgence.